Tensions in the Taiwan Strait. 3 Chinese helicopters are spotted in the air defense identification zone. Facts matter. Changes to a US statement on Taiwan are welcomed in Taipei, but anger Beijing. It's 50-50. Scientists warn the world could soon breach the 1.5 Celsius warming limit. And Taiwan scoops its first gold at the Deaflympics in Brazil. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Yin Khvat. Taiwan's military says that 3 Chinese helicopters breached its air defense zone on Tuesday. On the same day, a US warship was confirmed to have sailed through the region. Jaime Ocon has the details.
For Taiwan's military, it came as no surprise that China would try to send a reminder of its presence in the region during a series of advanced weapons tests. It's the second day of anti-ship missile tests in Taiwan's southeast. On Tuesday, Taiwan reported 3 Chinese military aircraft entering its ADIZ, or Air Defense Identification Zone. And for the first time ever, an attack helicopter was spotted breaching what's called the median line of the Taiwan Strait. The area in this case was around 80 kilometers from Taiwan's coast. But the Defense Ministry said that it is closely monitoring the situation.
我们对于中共的各种可能的行动，都以料敌从宽的一个原则进行评估，也列入敌可能行动妥为研讨。
On the same day, Taiwan confirmed that a U.S. guided missile destroyer sailed through the Taiwan Strait. The U.S. says it was part of a routine freedom of navigation exercise and in line with international law. Over in Washington, there are concerns that China's increase in military pressure is indicative of a broader plan.
It's our view that they are working hard to effectively put themselves into a position in which their military is capable of taking Taiwan over our intervention, right? We can talk in closed sessions about timelines and so on for how quickly they think they may be able to achieve that. But I think that is something that they are trying to achieve, which is to say that they would prefer not to have to use military force to take Taiwan. They'd prefer to use other means.
The latest tensions take place after China strongly denounced Washington's decision to change the description of Taiwan on the State Department's website. It removed a line saying that Washington, quote, did not support Taiwan independence. China considers Taiwan a part of its territory and has vowed to bring the country under its rule by force if necessary. The 3-day missile test taking place is one of a number of military exercises due to be conducted this year. While Taiwan heavily relies on the U.S. for support and for military hardware, the country's defense ministry has made it clear that its security will always lie in its own hands. Klein Wong and Jaime Ocon for TaiwanPlus.
China has reacted angrily to changes to the U.S. State Department fact sheet on Taiwan. Washington's amendments include removing a statement which said the U.S. does not support Taiwan independence. Our reporter Ryan Hoker-Patrick asked the Atlantic Council's Jessica Drunn about the significance of the changes.
Chinese reaction, I think, is overblown. Just because we remove something does not mean that we no longer take that position. It just shows a shift in prioritization. I don't think that it indicates a policy shift. I think it reflects a shift in prioritization of different elements of existing U.S. policy towards Taiwan. That said, I think some of the elements that we have shifted our prioritization on, that we currently are emphasizing and placing more importance on, are elements that China doesn't like, such as highlighting the 6 assurances.
What do you think are these significant areas of change in these edits, and what do they indicate?
One of the significant edits is adding in the 6 assurances. I think it presents a more holistic picture of what the U.S. One China policy is, as informed by the Taiwan Relations Act, the 3 joint communiques, and the 6 assurances. I think also what is significant is that it shows that the United States is clarifying existing elements of its policy. So in a way, it's pushing back against China's efforts to reshape the narrative of what the U.S. One China policy is.
In this new version, the United States has removed a line about not supporting Taiwan independence. Do you think that this is a significant change?
So essentially, the U.S. One China policy says that Taiwan's status is yet to be determined. China likes to conflate the US One China policy with its One China principle and say that the US has come to a final determination that Taiwan is a part of China. The One China principle is the PRC view that Taiwan is a part of China, and the PRC represents the government of all of China, with Taiwan included within its territory. So they're very dissimilar, and the United States has never abided by the One China principle. And we've seen this falls against the backdrop of China's continued insistence that U.S. Taiwan policy is something that it's not. We've seen, statements out of Chinese state media saying that the U.S. has agreed to Beijing's One China policy. That is untrue. We've seen statements from Chinese government officials saying that the Taiwan Relations Act is illegal, or that the Six Assurances Act is also illegal. And I think all of this is coming at a time where China has pushed too hard on trying to paint U.S. policy as something that it's not. And so this clarification is necessary and overdue.
The US says Russia's President Vladimir Putin is preparing for a protracted war in Ukraine. The head of the United States' national intelligence is also warning that the war could easily escalate and become more unpredictable. It comes as Ukraine reported gaining ground against Russian forces in the country's northeast. Rick Glowett reports.
Grim determination on the faces of Ukrainian soldiers holed up in Mariupol's Azovstal steelworks. 11 weeks into Russia's invasion, and after rounds and rounds of bombardments, the garrison here has held out, a major thorn in Putin's side. On Monday, the town's mayor renewed calls for a ceasefire.
Сьогодні треба розуміти, що тільки коли буде стійкий режим тиші, ми зможемо і наші хоробрі відповідь на це питання. Є цивільні або їх нема. Є оцінка, що там ще залишаються цивільне населення, які чекають на евакуацію.
In the northern region of Kharkiv, Ukraine's military says it has retaken towns once held by Russian forces. Putin's war in the eastern Donbass is not going smoothly, plagued by the same supply and logistics issues as his first offensive on Kyiv in February.
Збройні сили нашої держави забезпечили нам усім хороші новини з Харківської області, поступово відтискають окупантів від Харкова. Я вдячний усім нашим захисникам, усім нашим захисницям, які тримають оборону і проявляють дійсно надлюдську силу, щоб вигнати армію загарбників. Колись другу за потужністю армію світу.
Ukraine's backers, particularly the US, have doubled down on support for the country. And on Tuesday, US Congress was poised to approve spending $40 billion on military and humanitarian aid for Ukraine. But from the US Director of Intelligence, a warning that Ukraine will need all the help it can get.
The next month or two of fighting will be significant as the Russians attempt to reinvigorate their efforts, but even if they are successful, we are not confident that the fight in the Donbass will effectively end the war. We assess President Putin is preparing for a prolonged conflict in Ukraine, during which he still intends to achieve goals beyond the Donbass.
Ukrainian forces in the east are bearing the brunt of the country's fight for survival. But if the US intelligence assessment is correct, Putin's ultimate goal goes far beyond the current battlegrounds. Chris Marr and Rick Glowett for TaiwanPlus.
A shipment of humanitarian aid from Taiwan has reached central Ukraine after a journey of more than 8,000 kilometres. Organisers say the supplies will help people who have fled the fighting. Stash Butler reports.
Volunteers unload 4 tons of food and clothing from a truck in Yin Khvat. The city south of Kyiv is a world away from Taiwan, but as the flags on these boxes show, this shipment has come a long way to get here. Its journey began in the southern Taiwanese city of Kaohsiung, where local Ukrainian Olga Kulish led a drive to collect donations.
真的没想到，所以我记得那时候短短的几天内就收到很多东西。有些人甚至于看到我们那么辛苦，他就是放下身边的工作，就说我帮你整理。
From Kaohsiung, the boxes flew to Frankfurt and crossed Poland before finally reaching Yin Khvat. Locals spoke Mandarin to say thanks. The donation comes on the back of a recent shipment from Taiwan's Red Cross. The Foreign Ministry has also sent Ukraine almost $30 million in aid. This week's citizen-led delivery aims to help Ukrainians who fled their homes and show people in Yin Khvat that Taiwan really does stand with Ukraine. Taipei and Stash Butler for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan recorded over 57,000 new domestic cases of COVID-19 on Wednesday, setting yet another daily record. The ongoing wave is expected to hit rail services with an increasing number of infections among railway staff. Taiwan Railways Administration says from Saturday it will halt 94 scheduled services. According to Taipei's mayor, the city is preparing for the peak of this latest COVID wave.
那洪峰你知道哈，估计还是在下个礼拜，所以我们这个礼拜病例继续在上升了，我们整个医疗体系也渐渐在动员，那准备撞击了，就下个礼拜，撑得过去了，洪峰过了，慢慢就压力就会下去了。
Semiconductor giant TSMC says it's raising prices for a range of its advanced products. The Taiwanese chipmaker has told customers there will be a 6% price hike from January 1st next year. It comes less than a year after TSMC's biggest price increase in a decade. Global inflation, the war in Ukraine and COVID lockdowns in China are all thought to be inflating prices. TSMC makes around 90% of the world's most advanced semiconductors. The company's capital outlay this year is expected to hit a record $40 billion. Taiwan has won its first gold medal so far at this year's Deaflympics, the global games for the deaf. Sprinter Xu Le finished the 100-meter hurdles competition in 13.91 seconds, breaking the previous Deaflympics record for the event. Her victory puts Taiwan 17th on the medal table, with 1 gold, 4 silver and 5 bronze medals. As in most international sporting events, Taiwan is competing under the name Chinese Taipei. This year's games are taking place in Brazil. They are scheduled to run through Sunday. Coming up, it's Taiwanese American Heritage Week. So what does it mean to be part of the community? We ask YouTube co-founder Steve Chen. Back in a moment.
Welcome to Jason's Table, Shocked and Surprised. I really love the opportunity to get to share some of the most shocking and surprising but delicious foods here from Taiwan with you folks out there. Do you even know what this is?
These are chicken testicles.
Chicken testicles?
Yeah.
I think you got the surprise. Oh, I heard it first. Do you know what this is?
This is stinky tofu.
Some people say it smells like dirty socks.
I think it's egg.
I think the only way you can achieve that kind of smell, that kind of level, you would probably have to leave it for like a year or so.
So we got a good stinky tofu for you today?
It's great.
2 bowls of soup, which one is the most expensive? In Taiwanese beef noodles, there are different types of broth bases. There is qingdun, which is a clear broth. There is hongsa, which is the soy sauce-based broth. And there's also one that has tomato in there. It's very, very tender, and then it still maintains the characteristics of the fiber of the beef. This bowl of beef noodle soup is $55 US. The most expensive dish on their menu is the $337 US bowl of noodle soup.
It's expensive.
It's expensive. Specialty of Taiwan, it is
珍珠奶茶.
Tapioca milk tea or bubble tea or boba. Boba are made from sea cucumber. And actually, in the news, this has been described as the worst food in the world. Jason's Table, Shocked and Surprised, is coming soon on TaiwanPlus.
December and January is eel season here in Taiwan. So these little towns here pop up when the baby eels are caught. So he's going in and we're gonna take a look at how he does this. The waves are a little big today. Oh, Jesus Christ. Let's go take a look and see if we caught any. Oh, there's one. 哇，很难抓，很难抓。哇，他挑得很厉害。
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. Taiwan's Transportation Safety Board has published the final report on its investigation into last year's fatal train accident. 49 people died and 213 people were injured in the Taroko Express crash. The report included a number of safety recommendations for the body, which operates Taiwan's rail network. Our reporter Yin Khvat has more.
我们是不是一起来默哀1分钟?
A moment to spare a thought for the hundreds of victims of one of Taiwan's worst ever rail disasters. On Tuesday, the Safety Board delivered findings of its investigation into the events of the morning of April 2, 2021. It was the country's deadliest train crash in 6 decades. On its way to the East Coast, the Taroko Express number 408 hit a crane truck that had tumbled down a hill onto the tracks. Ironically, the construction uphill was a part of the government's plan to make the railway safer. The Taiwan Railways Administration, or TRA, which runs the rail network, had contracted a private company for the construction work. The Transportation Safety Board found that consistent negligence led to the tragedy, and it could have been avoided. They found that the worksite director had violated a number of regulations, including working on a holiday and failing to carry the communications equipment provided by the TRA. The report also found that the TRA lacked an effective alert system to warn about possible hazards on the tracks. They also found that standard safety procedures were not followed.
通报流程是必须要经过监造厂商，必须要经过专管，还有台铁的一个审查，但是台铁、专管跟监造商都没有善尽这样的一个职责。
The board also made further recommendations to improve safety.
站票是坐票罹难率的7倍，台铁应该重新考量站票的发售政策。
The TRA has held a number of events to commemorate the victims of the crash, but the grieving families are looking for concrete action. They are calling for more oversight and the formation of a committee to ensure that all the recommendations are taken on board. Asnaya Zhou and Yin Khvat for TaiwanPlus.
Sri Lanka is cracking down on rising anti-government demonstrations. The military has been deployed to contain the protests, with orders to shoot on sight any looters and those, quote, causing harm to life. At least 8 people have been killed and some 200 injured since violence broke out between pro and anti-government factions on Monday. The country is facing its worst economic crisis since its independence in 1948. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa resigned on Monday, but protesters are demanding that his brother, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, step down as well. The next 5 years will almost certainly set a new global temperature record. That's according to a new report by British meteorologists and the World Meteorological Organization. According to the report, there's a more than 90% chance that a new record for the highest annual average temperature will be set in the next 5 years, and there's a 50% chance that Earth's temperatures will rise by more than 1.5 degrees Celsius during the same period. A 1.5 degree temperature rise is critical because scientists believe this is a tipping point for the effects of climate change to become cataclysmic. To discuss the implications of the report and what Taiwan could do to avert a climate catastrophe, I spoke with Lena Chang, a climate and energy activist with Greenpeace Taiwan. She told me the government's phased carbon pricing policy, which makes large emitters pay for each ton of carbon they produce, does not go far enough.
It is still possible to meet the Paris Agreement to control the global temperature rise within 1.5 degrees. But to do that, it requires drastically reduce of greenhouse emission in every aspect of our life. So not only energy transition, also buildings, transportation, even our lifestyle. And the ultimate goal is to achieve 2050 net zero. And sadly, our government is not doing enough in terms of setting the right midterm goal. Currently, the government's plan is to reduce only 20% by 2030, which is definitely not enough to achieve the long-term net zero goal.
The Taiwan government has announced that it will start carbon pricing in 2024, 2025, but in a phased program. Can you outline whether you think this is enough?
As we know, carbon pricing is a critical tool to set more incentive on the corporates for them to reduce the greenhouse gas emission. However, the government is not putting strong enough regulation in terms of carbon pricing, because we need a basic floor price for the carbon pricing, and also we need to increase the price by time. That is why we are asking the government to set an effective carbon pricing instead of just a number. And aside from the corporate, we also need more people to join the momentum. It's not only the corporation, it's about the whole society to ask the government and the corporate to do more in terms of fighting climate change.
This week marks the Taiwanese American Heritage Week. It was first marked in 1999 to celebrate the achievements of Taiwanese people in the United States. Our reporter Bing Wang spoke to one of the most influential members of the community, YouTube co-founder Steve Chen, about his experiences as a Taiwanese American.
So how has being Taiwanese American made you the person you are today?
In terms of a Taiwanese American, in terms of like being a racial minority, and especially being in the Midwest where there were really no other Asian Americans, where in the suburbs of the Midwest, I think that it is a situation in which you're going to be put into some cases where there's gonna be a little bit more stress and a little bit more pressure, because you're unique, you're the only person in this area, and there aren't many other people to be able to look to in terms of getting guidance and being able to get, especially 20 plus years ago, before you could be able to easily communicate, be able to reach out and find resources for help or for just to communicate and to talk. So I think that there's all sorts of pressure and all sorts of, growing up in business and starting companies and anything that you do. But I think the racial card definitely does enter the picture. And I think that it's a part of my interest to be able to make that as level of a playing field as possible.
So you've donated to causes that support Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. So what do you think industry leaders like yourself can do more to help the cause?
I know that I never had to go through a single day where, I had to think about the just survival, on that part. I had the ability to be able to do what I did because I was granted the choice to be able to attend something like the Illinois Mathematics and Science Academy. I was given the choice to be able to go to, at the age of 15, a boarding school and then be surrounded by other sort of 15-year-olds that are interested in math, in science, in computers. And I know that not everybody has that opportunity. Now, it would be unfortunate if it's just because of the circumstances that these opportunities don't present themselves, that great ideas don't come to realization. And I think that if there's anything that I can do to be able to, and it's not a lot, but it's just to be able to tell them the story and to be able to lend any kind of support that I could give to really, it would be such a missed opportunity if these kids that have great ideas, have great talent and great gifts, yet they're unable to do it because they're having a difficult time getting, meeting their hunger every night.
Andy Warhol's iconic portrait of Marilyn Monroe is now the most expensive 20th century artwork ever to go under the hammer.
170 million for the Warhol is selling here
To you, sir, $170 million.
After adding taxes fees, the famed shot sage Blue Marilyn, a 1964 silkscreen portrait of Marilyn Monroe, sold for $195 million US. It was slightly below the estimated sale price of $200 million US. The brightly coloured painting is one in a series of portraits of Monroe that Warhol made right after the actress's death. The previous auction record for a 20th century painting was $179.4 million for Pablo Picasso's Women of Algiers in 2050. Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. I'm Yin Khvat. Finally today, we'll leave you with images of a piano busker playing in New York's Washington Square Park. People are invited to lie under the piano to feel the vibrations from the keys. For more stories from Taiwan and around the world, please download the TaiwanPlus app. Stay safe and see you next time.